That's true. It's like having
Okay, we ready to start? Okay. So the topic at hand, we said, is the idea of Bashert, which is the Yiddish word for determined, destiny, chosen. The idea is that when we're looking to get married or we're looking to have stable, long-term relationships, is that God, the divine presence or the divine providence, that plays a part in arranging that there's two people that are supposed to be together and they end up meeting and they end up their destinies to be together and they end up meeting under the auspices, so to speak, of the guiding hand, God's guiding hand. That's the idea that we were fed, that we were taught, and the sources are the page that you have in front of you are the sources, the source material for this idea. So after we read through these sources, we'll become experts on this topic, as much of an expert on this topic as anyone else. So we could glean our own conclusions, and we can develop and formulate our own opinions, irrespective, not dependent, not contingent on what anyone else thinks or says. So these are the sources in the Talmud. And one of them is from the beginning of Sota, and one of them is from the middle of Moed Katan. And what we're going to do is like this. Remember, we're crowdsourcing. So we're going to read. Now, we never try this. It's a big crowd. We'll see if we can do it. We're going to read, and we're going to see what ideas jump out at us, or what the general theme of the passage of the snippet that we're reading from, what the overall theme is, and then also specifically, I want everyone to try to analyze as much as possible. Try to find questions, or try to find inconsistencies, or try to find whatever you can to try to analyze it and try to see what it means. Okay? You ready for this, Dahlia?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. Okay. When Reish Lakish started his discourse on Tractate Sota, he said, quote, "Providence only matches a woman for a man with regard to his actions." This is Rashi, the parentheses are Rashi. "A modest woman for a righteous man, and an immodest woman for a wicked man." So the first thing, off the bat, we have a brand new idea. And that is that there is this divine, quote-unquote, matchmaker who is putting two people together. And what it says is that this power, or this entity, is going to hook people up, hitch people, if you will, vis-a-vis with regards to their actions. Question, Jason.
When Reish Lakish got hooked up initially,
Ooh.
his actions, he was not exactly in the height of his actions in his life.
Tell us more.
Okay. So the story with Reish Lakish is basically that he was a bandit. He led a group of people that would basically rob other people, be not so nice to other people. And one day, basically, he saw this rabbi bathing, and he was giving him a hard time. And he goes, the rabbi, something along the lines of, you're so beautiful. You should use your looks for women. And he turned around and said, you're so smart. You should use your intelligence for Torah. I believe something along those lines there. And eventually, the Reish Lakish got hooked up with the rabbi's sister, and then he became quite a scholar. But he wasn't quite the scholar when the initial match was made with the rabbi's wife.
You know what, Jason?
Is that roughly accurate?
No, well, that's a good point. I didn't actually think about this. This is what I mean by crowdsourcing. Because the guy in question, the author of this statement himself, when he got married, he said his wife was a sister of Yochanan, right? She must have been a righteous, modest, whatever person, while he was the king of thieves. Interesting. I did not think of that point. I like that.
Yeah, but he only got to marry her because he was committed to starting to learn Torah.
But certainly, when the match was made, he was not a man of actions. That when the marriage certainly was contingent on becoming a man of Torah, but certainly at the time when the first offer was made by Rabbi Yochanan, at that point he was still bleeding.
Maybe it goes by like the path you're on. He at that point made the decision to switch to a path of being a righteous person.
He did have the actions though at that point, though. That's my point.
Well, what does action mean?
That's another question, though.
But so, see, I love the back and forth. I feel like I'm back in yeshiva. So the statement here is an incredible idea. Not only, it means there's two things that are happening here. Not only is there a predetermined or preferred or chosen match, but it is tailored towards a person's actions. Which means if the guy acts a certain way, then the parallel would be his spouse, and the opposite would be true as well. It means not only is there a predetermined or the divine sets up two people to meet, and there's like, quote unquote, the right person for you, the Bashert, if you will, pardon my Yiddish, but that is also tailored specifically to the actions of a person.
I would disagree with that.
Okay.
Because I would hope that, at least, for myself and my husband, we complement each other. We bring out the best in each other. We can also bring out the worst in each other. I won't lie to anyone here. But we bring out the best.
Eliana, tell us more.
But you hope that you're with someone who encourages you to become a better Jew, someone who is more devoted to Torah. And this is something that you may start out one place together, and one person may lean one direction, and another person may lean another, but you hope that you come together, you have...
Converge,
yeah,
balance.
and
Well, I have a different question, because I know couples where they're not on the same level at all.
Mm-hmm.
So there seems to be a problem if we're saying that people get hooked up vis-a-vis their level, and they're balanced. Like, if he's righteous, she's righteous, or if he's righteous, she's modest, which is the equivalent, which is also a curious thing. Right? That's what Rashi says, which I thought someone would mention that. It's a curious thing. He's righteous, she's modest. He's wicked, she's immodest. It seems like the barometers are not equal, right?
I thought this will never come to my life again, but I saw once somebody saying, and I feel embarrassed for it because it may sound very sexist, but he's a very religious guy who says, "Oh yeah, I want to marry a Balchuba so I can form her into what I want her to be."
Huh?
And that's what he did.
I don't understand.
Basically, a very religious guy that said, "I want to marry a Balchuba
So you could form, like...
so he
Yeah.
mold her.
Mold her?
Like how we want to
Tailor her in
Being more observant.
with that, observance.
Observance? Means he wants like an innocent...
And minagim and all of this.
Oh. So... Okay, but I know people want to do crazy things.
I mean, that's
right? A lot of people want to do insane things.
No,
like,
I mean-
I have a friend who says he's only married someone who's blonde, or fill in the blank, right?
No,
People say what they want to do, which is another important point. What if someone wants to do something that's against these quote-unquote rules? What happens then? I mean, this is exactly what I'm talking about. We're trying to figure out what the message, what the lesson is, and these questions all help us clarify what's actually happening. So I'm saying, so to finish the previous point was that we sometimes see in relationships where there indeed is a very big chasm or difference or between him and her, either way. So that seems to be inconsistent with what Rish Lakish is saying. Brian.
I have a question. It says that it's about the fetus.
You're getting ahead of Will.
We're too far?
Yeah, we're not up to there yet.
Calm down.
Yeah, Brian, calm down. Brian is always rushing.
When we get to the fetus.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay. Fine. So this is a statement, and we have a lot of questions on it. Correct? Anyone has any other questions? Stephanie, how are we doing? Any questions?
No.
Okay.
Too many, rather.
Too many? So give us one. Okay.
Weiter.
Okay. So that's the statement of Rish Lakish, that not only is there a divine process in putting two people together, but also the way we choose. It's tailored as per the actions, the merit, the righteousness, so to speak, of the two people involved. Okay. As it says, and he brings a source from it, from the Psalms, from the rod of wickedness shall not rest upon the lot of the righteous. Now, I typed this. I may have made mistakes, so I didn't read it over, but I hope it's... Okay, fine. That's his statement. Clear? Good? Yeah, everyone's good? Weiter. Okay. Weiter is Yiddish for moving. Further, moving right along. Okay, so continues the Gemara, continues the Talmud. Rabbah, the grandson of Chana, said, and it is as difficult to match them as splitting the sea. As it says, God settles the solitary into a family. He releases those bound in fetters. I don't even know what fetters means. Anyone knows what fetters means?
We were trying to figure it out.
Jessica? Fetters?
Chains.
Huh? Chains? That's what it means? Chains, okay.
Like probably like some kind of
Chains. Ryan's, we have Ryan. Chains. Okay. So this is another idea. It means, it adds another element of peculiarity, if you will.
Is this S&M?
Huh?
S&M or what?
What does S&M mean?
Fighter.
I'm so sorry.
What does it mean?
I don't know.
I didn't hear what it says.
Oh no, I said
It's
it's fine. I'm so sorry.
So, I missed that. Okay. So, Rachel, this guy is adding an additional point. He's saying, it's difficult to do it like the splitting in the sea. Strange. What's he saying? What's he talking about? Moving right along. Okay, so that's the idea. We have one idea that we put people together based on the righteousness, and number two, this is difficult, but like the splitting of the sea. Is this true? Now the Gemara is going to contend, or the Talmud is going to contend. Talmud and Gemara, this is the same word, by the way. One's in Hebrew, one's in Aramaic. So the Talmud contends: is that true? Is the divine oversight governing matchmaking decided based upon righteousness and wickedness? But Rabbi Yehuda says, in the name of Rav, 40 days prior to the formation of the fetus, a prophetic announcement is declared. The daughter of so-and-so is designated for this fetus, and such field is designated for him. I.e., it is predetermined before the righteousness of the child is known who is to be his mate. You see the problem, Jill? We have another statement that says that there is some sort of prophecy or some degree of prophecy that announces the mate of an unborn child. Now, before a child is born, the righteousness of the child is not known. We don't know if the child will be righteous or not. That's up to his or her decision making. So how could it be that one person, the divine providence that directs a person towards a certain spouse can be both based upon righteousness and be predetermined? Those things are mutually exclusive.
But is the mutual exclusivity are the two fetuses mutually exclusive? Are the two souls mutually exclusive? For instance, what I'm trying to say is that can one's righteousness affect the soulmate's righteousness? Can one's religious obligation affect the other's religious obligation? Obviously, without knowing it.
But you're saying this is before they're born?
No, this is after they're born. What I'm saying is that in order for it to make sense and connect, it can't be like the two souls have to be connected somehow. And what I'm saying is that those souls have to be connected in such a sense that if one is wicked, the other one is going to somehow, in some form of faith, connect to that. Do you get what I'm saying?
No.
No. Okay.
Like if something's happening to one soul, it's happening to the other.
So basically,
At
souls
the-
are tied
at the same
together. So
time.
if one goes one way,
Not
goes the
necessarily,
other.
well, maybe at the same time, maybe not at the same time, but when they meet, I guess.
Yeah.
Right.
So if I were thinking like having basically two souls are basically tied together, maybe like by rubber band sorts. If one goes this way, the other one eventually get pulled
Right.
that way.
Right.
Is one an
And
accomplice? The accomplice.
Can you repeat it again? Sorry.
You're not nice to advise.
I'm sorry, I apologize.
So basically,
You want to say that one soul could, like, my soul can influence Chaya's soul, is that what we're saying?
right, like it's not.
Now that we're married, post they're married?
No, before, because if they're meant to be
before
together, they
marriage,
have to be
this
doing
is
the same
whole
thing.
concept Of Bashert, this is the whole concept of soulmate.
That.
That, yeah, it's being announced before we're born, who we're supposed to find for that future. But what I'm also saying is that it can't be mutual. It can't be two exclusive souls. Like they have to be connected somehow in order for that wicked, righteous, religious, not religious, all that stuff to balance.
So you're trying to reconcile these two statements by saying that by the mere fact that we're announcing that these two souls are compatible, or partner souls, sister souls, if you will, therefore, by definition, they'll be either both wicked or both righteous. Righteous. Is that what you're trying to say?
Somehow to balance, not necessarily both.
Yeah, but the problem is that we have one statement. We have one statement that says that the souls that get put together, soulmates, if you will, are based upon righteousness, and the other opinion says that the soulmates are determined, or the divine influence on who should be the soulmate is determined by fate, or by something by a prophecy. Prophecy that's before the righteousness is known.
But that's not
right.
So that's the problem.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is as they grow up, as the souls mature separately or together, you don't know, that it balances one another.
If someone chooses to go on a path, someone chooses to go on a really, really certain path, then the other soul is going to have to follow in some way.
Right.
That's what you're saying.
Interesting.
Right.
But that means that each one of them is sort of bound, like, means because they're soulmates, they end up being either both righteous or both wicked.
Not necessarily.
Or similar.
It could be opposites too, depending on how it's.
Yeah, but in the context of the two statements, statements, that's what we're trying to figure out. In the context of these two statements.
Here's the other thing. You don't necessarily end up marrying or having a future with that Bashert. It doesn't necessarily happen. We know that.
Agreed.
So, I mean, hypothetically it could be.
Agreed. Interesting.
But there's also such a thing as being a Bashert down here but not up there. That you may think that you appeal to each other and whatnot, but ultimately it could not be right match.
I don't think so.
Slug it out. What do you say, Dahlia? What were you going to say? You just started saying.
No, I was just clarifying something.
Oh, okay. Claire. Okay, so let's see how everyone understand the conflict of these two statements according to the Talmud? Clear? Good. So what is the answer? What's the answer? Okay, it's not a question. We're answering the question. Here it is referring to the first match, and here it is referring to the second match. Now here is where all hell breaks loose. Now when we're talking about marriage and all hell breaks loose, not a good thing. Okay, but in this statement, this one statement of Talmud, fireworks erupt because no one seems to have clarity in what the statement means. We're saying that the statement of Rish Lakish, which says that the divine arrangement of a marriage, so to speak, or the divine orchestration of a marriage is determined by actions. While we have Rabbi Yehuda say that the divine orchestration of marriage is determined before the children are even born. So we're saying these are two separate instances. One of them is the first match, one of them is the second match. What does first match or second match mean? I'm going to present y'all with my opinion, because there are other opinions, but my opinion is brought down by the Ivitz, the great 18th century scholar, so it is substantiated. But he says like this, and I think this is the crucial point of the night. And that's like this. First match means the ideal match. And this is what Jessica brought up. According to this piece of Talmud, and as substantiated by the verse in Genesis that talks about a soul having how many parts? Two parts. One male and one female. And every soul that we have is really half a soul. And the perfect match is this other soul, like a jigsaw puzzle. You have the two pieces that they fit together, and they're really two parts of two halves of one whole, so to speak. And in the first, the ideal situation is where this prophecy. What's this prophecy talking about? The prophecy says this child or these two children, they're supposed to be together. It means that their souls are sister souls. They're supposed to be together. Okay? But what happens if one of the members goes askew. One of them doesn't toe the line. One of them either improves. The idea being here is like this. You have two people heading in a certain direction, right? Because their souls are trying to, compelling them in a certain direction. Okay? So they really should be at the same line because they're soulmates, so to speak, and they should be going together. That's the first match. That's the ideal situation. What happens if one of the partners doesn't toe the line and either improves or gets downgraded? Right? How do you say the opposite of improves?
Regress.
Deproves? What's a deproves?
Digress.
Digresses.
Regress.
Regresses. If one of the souls does either improves or regresses, then at that point they don't no longer have parity with their soul, and they're incompatible with their partner soul, and then we have a tremendous challenge because then we have two souls. Then we have to find a compatible soul, not organically, not the way it's supposed, not ideally, but we have to find where that person is holding at that junction in his or her life, and then we have to find someone who's holding at a compatible level. And that is a very difficult process, and as difficult as the splitting of the sea. I.e., what does that mean? The splitting of the sea is the epitome of a supernatural event. There's nature, there's the laws of nature, and then a miracle happens, and something supernatural outside of the confines of nature occurs. Naturally, we're supposed to be hooked up with our soulmate. Our soul is supposed to connect perfectly in the ideal world, first match, with our sister soul, with the soul partner, with the other half. Problem is, when we are no longer compatible with that half, either because either one of the souls went either up or down, either improved or regressed, then we have to come with some supernatural or unnatural, if you will, way of acclimating two souls that aren't really supposed to be together. So that is, in my opinion, what this Talmud is saying. Indeed, the divine orchestration of souls, the whole idea of Bashert, exists. But how and where does it exist? What are the parameters of this idea? And they exist in two different ways. Either, ideally, we have two souls that are supposed to be together. They're two halves of one whole. Fill in every cliche that you've heard, right? 1 + 1 = 1. We complete each other. Match.com. JDate. Right? All that and that is indeed a true idea. It's a substantiated classical Jewish idea in classical Jewish philosophy that a soul, like Zachar Kebarotam, like it says in the beginning of Genesis, every soul is really a male and female. And every one of us, being either male or female, has half a soul, and somewhere in this vast universe exists the perfect match, the perfect companion, right? The perfect, the perfect and ideal partner for us. Problem is, or the reality is that we can influence, we can change, we can improve, or we can regress. We can become more wicked. Wicked is a bad word for us, but we can become less righteous, and therefore our souls are no longer compatible, and then the divine orchestration of our soul has to take on another reality where we have to find a soul that is on par or close to par, and that's difficult. That's as difficult as splitting the sea because that's an unnatural process. Stephanie.
So it seems, because every person that's born is going to do some kind of movement, people don't usually just, I don't know.
Migration.
Right, so it seems like it's almost, it seems like the miracle almost is that anyone would find that, because if two souls are born, they have totally free will, there's no way to
no one remains
know
stagnant.
how it's going to, they're going to go the exact same, at the same time.
People within reason. within a margin of error. Like you talk to any married person who's ever been married, and they say that they're not exactly, but they're close enough if it works out. And the point that Eliana, I think Eliana brought up is a very important one. I'm thinking this is a really broad concept, but I think we could do it. But the point that Eliana brought up is that what if someone says that they don't want to follow the rules? They don't want to they want to decide for themselves. Then they're entitled to do so. Correct? Mm-hmm. So you're saying, where's the margin of error? So let's give yourself room for some sort of margin of error. Okay? But I like to view the question of the night. What's the question of the night? No one's asked it yet. I was hoping you were going to ask that.
How about animals?
When he talked, huh?
How about animals?
Animal, is that the question?
How do you find it?
How do you find it? That's a good question. And that was one of the questions. When you talked about migration, I thought that was going to be the question. Well, how do you know where to find this? What does it mean?
Start at different points.
You don't. You believe me.
Huh? Well, how does that work? That's exactly the word of the night.
Maybe this person who you get based on your actions is the Bashert from the first example.
Well, that is what Jessica wanted to say.
No.
Right?
Yeah, you said that
it doesn't have to be, but it could
they're
be.
on the same level to start, but
by taking that big jump in whichever direction, you might end
together.
up getting closer to your.
Right.
Well, if they toe the line, then it's fine. If they both head in the same direction, what if they head in different directions?
Well, then they're not meant to be together.
You just believe that. Right?
Yeah, but the soul doesn't change. You can't change your soul. You can't trade it in. You can't go to Dave's shop and trade in your soul and get a new one. Actually, you could. That's called death. But
but if there is
trading value,
such a belief in the Reish that filled it out.
Yeah, which is Yiddish for the Almighty runs the world.
Or like he runs the show.
Runs the show.
So if you believe in that, then when the situation such as divine providence is called, it will appear to you that at the right time, at the right moment, all these things combined together will point you into the direction of the right person.
Okay, so this is exactly where I want to head to. So I think we finished we finished the realm of the theory. We're going to try to see how this works out practically for us. That's where everyone's supposed to wake up. Like the realm of theory, we understand or we don't understand, but the ideas are laid out in front of us. But practically, like you said, how do we exercise it? How does this work? What if someone doesn't want it? How does this involve with someone's whims, wants, wills, and desires?
But then they're not your soulmate.
How do you know your soulmate? How do you practically? We all.
You might
everyone
not
here.
You don't know. There's no way to know.
Everyone
there's no voice
here.
coming down and telling you.
Everyone here who's not married at one point most likely wants to get married. Correct. No one wants to screw up. Correct. Everyone wants to make sure.
It depends how much adventurous you are.
How much what?
How adventurous you are.
How adventurous you are. So.
On the flip side.
Yes, flip side, Gary.
You're telling us that everybody has their own soulmate.
Yes.
Okay, so I have a soulmate picked out for me.
Not picked out. It's just the reality. It's the other half of your soul.
There's a soulmate for me.
Indeed. Yes.
So,
how do you find her?
Why can't I just sit back and let it just happen?
So that's one question. You want to wait and see.
Yeah, but that's not how the world works. I mean, like, if you say like, oh, God will provide, you stay home, God will provide.
Well, that's
You don't.
Like that.
The best example is like two magnets. They keep them far away enough from each other, but we keep putting them close and finally come together. That's kind of the idea.
Like that's not close girls.
Get close enough.
Like sitting way is not
I have another question.
Yes.
Just because you have a bashert, just because you have a soulmate, is it guaranteed that you're supposed to come across them before death?
So you want to know how do you meet them? That's the question.
Is it guaranteed that you're supposed to come across them?
Is there for everyone?
Do they have a soulmate? That's a good question.
What are the people that never find it?
What if people never find one?
What about the people that never find it?
What about the people who never find it?
Or don't see it when it's there.
Ooh. Yeah, that's a good point. Brian, it's possible. It's possible. Dahlia, say it again.
What is it?
You just missed the bright light.
Yeah.
Missed the
What
boat.
she's saying is that it's possible that everyone finds it, but because they don't have the receptors on, or they're not cognizant of it, or they find it and they don't grab the opportunity and they lose it. It means it's possible to get it and to lose it.
Is
But
it possible though? That's the thing.
Does it come back?
You know, if it's that close, is it possible for you to not? It's not gonna smack you like right in the face.
And also, like, that.
You know.
it might smack you, but you might just turn around and run for your life, or you might.
But then that's also like, if there's two souls, then one person's well-being in that way very much depends on what this other person supposedly does. Because, let's say one person is living their life in an ideal way, and the other is, so that's going to affect the soul has.
Yeah, but either way, okay, we said that there's two ways that there can be an orchestration of our soul, of our mate. Either it's the ideal way, which we call first match, which is, this is my sister's soul, right? Correct? Mm-hmm. Or it's in a secondary or less optimal way, where either one of the members involved, they're on different plateaus, and therefore each one of them needs someone who's more comparable to where they're holding in life, and there's a divine orchestration for that. It means either way, Stephanie, wherever your soulmate is holding, there's someone who's good for you, or maybe some ones who are good for you who are proper for you, which are in your in that margin of error.
Sometimes it tastes really bad.
No, no, and either way, we have what's called this divine orchestration. The question is,
everything.
Yeah, but specifically, where else do you have in such sources that it's
No. This is the most clear out of everything that we do in life that this thing exists, and that takes place. I mean, it's the strongest. I guess manifestation of
Ashtacha Pratis.
What?
Ashtacha Pratis.
Exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Were you asking where else do we see this?
Yeah, where else do we see in classical sources so clearly saying that there's prophecy saying who's the right one, and there's the divine orchestration of different matches. This is.
Closest off the top of my head would be like it's fucking
I'm saying, but besides from marriage, where else do we see that the divine providence is taking such an active role in our lives? This is almost unprecedented, where you have an idea or a part of our lives, an important part of our lives, where the Talmud or the classical sources are telling us there's somebody or some force that's helping you in this area, this challenging area that you face in your life.
Isn't that with God in general?
Yeah, but with general, but this is more specific. It means there's specifically for you, Gary. Either there's actually a soulmate, and God's going to help you find that soulmate if you want, or the soulmate is just not there for you for whatever reason, and then you'll have what's known as a secondary soulmate, which is a soulmate that's perfect for you, or almost perfect for you, nearly perfect for you. Nearly perfect. And God will help you find that one. But it's unprecedented, the idea of God helping us in such what's so funny, Brian? Oh, okay.
But I like his point though. He said that, our forefathers, do you see that? Do you see that attraction, or when souls collide, when the majority of the time you see it's being matched, or it comes...
Well, I have a much more personal example, and I was reading one of my grandfather's diaries this week, and I noticed that my grandfather was born in Germany, and my grandmother was born in Lithuania, and they met in Sweden. Like, that's highly unlikely, correct? My mother was born in Brooklyn. My father was born in this small, dusty little town in middle Israel. And somehow they met in Jerusalem. And I was born in the United States. My wife was from Canada, and we met in Jerusalem. And each one of these stories, independently, are the most outlandish, highly improbable stories that you'll ever hear. My grandfather ended up in Sweden itself. He writes the story of how he ended up in Sweden. So incredibly improbable. Well, he actually survived the war in Sweden. But it's so highly improbable how he ended up there. And my grandmother, he writes the decisions that she made. She had a ticket out of the death camps. She had a way out. And inexplicably, well, they were going to march back to Germany. Whoever got shoes was allowed to march. Whoever didn't get shoes was going to go to the extermination camp. My grandmother got shoes. Okay? She got the shoes. She had her ticket to freedom. But, inexplicably, okay, her whole family went to march. But inexplicably, because one of her friends didn't get shoes, she went back to the commanding officer and gave him back the shoes. And the guy looked at her, Are you mad, ma'am? Are you insane? But she just did it. And my grandfather writes that she was just compelled. And it's such a foolish decision that she made. But that set off a chain of events, thank you, that brought her to Sweden. And boom, they met in Sweden. And highly improbable. And he says that this is an example, an illustration of how the chain of events will happen, and you'll have the opportunity, and like Dali says, you better not squander it, but you'll have an opportunity to meet that person who's right for you. It may be improbable, it may be outlandish like this story, or like my mother, I spoke to my mother today, I called her up, I said, Ima, what really happened? Okay? I want to know, I'm talking about it tonight. What really happened? Because she was 17 years old. I was like, someone's getting arrested. Okay, she was 17 years old, okay, from Brooklyn, and she had finished high school. So her, with a bunch of her friends, they went to Israel, okay? Now my dad, who's a cool guy, Israeli, okay, but grew up like in the smallest city with 2 dirt roads in the city. But somehow, he learned to speak English. Now, he spoke English in a time in Israel. Everyone speaks English now. But this is the early 70s. Nobody spoke English in Israel. Nobody. He learned to speak English. How he did it, I don't know.
It was probably very accented.
No, I know this is the next point. I don't know how he spoke English or how he learned it. But my mother told me today, says, when she met him, she did not know that he was Israeli. So she said,
if you would have met him today, you would know he's Israeli.
She said to me, Yaakov, I did not know he was Israeli. If I knew he was Israeli, I wouldn't talk to him. She told me. Today, I spoke to her today. I can give you your phone number. If you don't trust me, call yourself, okay? And he was like, he was a cool kid, and he had a motorcycle, and he gave her some rides on the motorcycle. And he was speaking to her in English, in fluent English. Somehow he learned fluent English. And somehow, now, she went back to America. And he maintained a relationship with her, I don't know, through letters or whatever. And he decided that they're getting married. They want to get married. And her parents put up the biggest, and my mother says, she says today, we know that teenagers have beef with their parents, and it's nothing wrong. Some people have it, some people don't. She said that if her mother didn't make such a big deal, she would have dropped it anyhow. But her mother made such a big deal about it, so she said, "Okay, we're going." And they got married. But they got married, and when he was 20, she was 18. But after a year and a half after they met in Israel, randomly, and somehow he spoke English, which is a mystery to himself, how he taught himself English. He spoke English to the degree she didn't notice, and they ended up married, and that's why I'm here. Otherwise, I would just be the world will be missing the brilliance. Right? But think about how many different things, and in your own stories, we have Mark over here, right? Mark's dad grew up in South Africa, and his mom grew up in Israel. How'd they meet? Also a crazy story, right? And they're happily married, 40 years later. And my wife and I, the way we, this is a real story. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Okay, so, like this. I was 20 years old, and my brother was 22 years old.
Wonder which version you're
It was a true story. Now, this woman who lives in Jerusalem,
She is a matchmaker.
she's a matchmaker. What she does is like, anyone here has ever played darts? Yeah, darts. Okay, so you know the dart stock picking? How they pitch stocks? They throw darts at like a list of stocks. That's what they buy. That's what she does. Because she doesn't know anyone, or she doesn't know at least. And she just throws a dart, and she just makes phone calls, and she gets lucky, or she's just a hand.
She knew me.
She knew you. Okay, like this. Okay, she called up my mother about my brother, who's 2 years older than me. And she said, oh, I have this girl, whatever, maybe we should introduce them, whatever. And my mother says, well, he's actually just got engaged, this is my older brother. But, I have a younger son. Okay, now this woman, not only does she not know anything about me, okay, to this day, she can't pick me out of a police lineup. She doesn't know anything about me. Literally. Nothing. Okay? But it happens to be, She doesn't know my family. Remember, throwing darts at the... Nothing. I don't know how she knew.
She probably heard about his
She
brother
heard whatever.
through someone else, so she called my mother-in-law about...
Anyhow,
about
Chaya, when Chaya spent 2 years in seminary in Israel, so she befriended this lady's neighbor, right? Next door neighbor. And so she knew her
I know her.
a little bit, right? You know when you have a friend and the friend has a neighbor? Right? And they sometimes come over to watch the game. Like, so you know them a little bit? Right? That's how well she knew Chaya. And she happened to have known that Chaya was coming to Israel the following week. And she says, ha! The dart hit, right? She threw the dart. and she introduced me, who she does still till this day doesn't know anything about me, to Chaya, right? The odds, I'm saying once again, it's just unlikely, highly unlikely, but the Almighty is going to orchestrate a way for you to meet that's what it means. When it says, Ein Mizavdom, the divine doesn't orchestrate, doesn't arrange for two people to meet either. The divine orchestration arranges that people should meet either as per their souls, 40 days before the fetus, there's a prophecy. It means that these souls are sister souls, they go together. Somehow God will take the boy from Germany, the girl from Lithuania, make them meet in Sweden in the most unlikely of circumstances, or take the Moshav kid from Israel and the city girl from Brooklyn, and somehow let his charisma win her over against any rational or reasonable. Like my mother grew up in a city in Brooklyn. Okay, they got married. They moved to Israel, to his little dusty moshav. Could you imagine meeting someone from think of the most exotic place, from French Polynesia, and just moving to their little village there? That's what she did. It's crazy. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that practically.
It has to always be so crazy.
No, like when you meet this person who's divinely orchestrated that you're supposed to meet them. It doesn't mean that there's stars around them. Like, oh, I met.
It means you have an opportunity.
But in hindsight, when you look back, you can see that there were events that led to that. Obviously, we were supposed to meet each other. It's not like when you're going into it, when you're driving a car, you don't say I'll just close my eyes and whatever's supposed to be will be. If I'm supposed to crash into another car, it will happen whether or not my eyes are open or shut. Obviously, when you're going in, you have to just make the right decisions, and you have to think things through with all the 5 C's that you learned.
5 C's? Anyone here heard of the 5 C's class? Jessica,
But
5 C's.
5 C's.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Whatever. You have to make logical decisions and be smart about it, but in hindsight you could think this was for sure.
But the idea is that I look at it as a government program, right? There's binding government programs and there's optional government programs. I think of it as like healthcare in Israel, socialized medicine in Israel. Like in Canada, for example, there's socialized medicine, but there's no opt-out clause. You can't say, "Oh, I want to have my own insurance." But in Israel, there's socialized medicine, but you can have your own insurance. I find this idea to be like Israeli medicine, that you could say it's like a free benefit that comes from being a human. One of the benefits of being part of the Almighty's world is that they'll help you. Think of it as like a career coach or a college guru. What's the guy who helps you decide which college to go to? What? College counselor, something like that. It's an offer to help. You could say, like Eliana talked about earlier, you could say, "Oh, I want to make the decision myself," or you could just be either ignorant or not take the opportunity, like Dahlia said, and not use it and miss out. You could have the opportunity to miss out, or you can say, "I don't want it," and you don't, and then you'll go on your own. But the idea is that we live in a very populated world. Okay, there's lots of people here. There's few, or maybe even a couple, or maybe even one, people that are perfect for us, that will help us. It'll be the best marriage. It'll be the marriage that built to last. It'll give us the most chances for successes. But how do we meet those people? It's a very large universe. There's very populated. There's lots of people, lots of Jews. And that's an overwhelming question, especially if we take this idea of sister souls and we want to find the missing half. And there's lots of people in the world. How are we going to find that missing half? This piece of Talmud is telling us is that you're not alone. In this pursuit, you're not alone. God will give you the opportunity, if you want. You can opt out. You have the opportunity, and at some point you'll come across. God will arrange that you'll meet this person, and then you could either take the opportunity, or you could say, "I'll pass." You could say, "I'll pass." And the idea is, like Chaya said, that you have to do your due diligence. You can't just close your eyes and say, "Hey, if it's a warm body and the person's alive, well, it can't go wrong, right? God's in control here." And indeed, you can. There is, I believe, ample evidence to that. But you have to do to the best of your abilities. You have to find out as much as possible. You have to do your due diligence. But ultimately, God, the idea of the orchestration, they're here to help you, and they're here, and you're not alone. And otherwise, it would be too daunting of a process. If we were really serious about this, and we're making decisions here, we're making decisions that have the most repercussions of any decision that we'll ever make. The decision of who you marry or who you settle down with, that decision is the most important decision you'll ever make in your life. And if you make a wrong decision, if you make a bad decision, you're going to pay for it big time. So we want to make sure that when we're ready to make a decision, we don't screw up. And the idea is that you're going to have help. It's too big of a decision. It's too difficult a decision to make by yourself. At one point, you'll come across the person that's right for you, and you'll have the opportunity. Don't squander it. You have the opportunity to get what you deserve. And actually, part of my grandfather's diary, back to the diary, he too faced resistance. Means my grandmother comes from a very prestigious Lithuanian rabbinic family. Think of it as like the Kennedys of Lithuanian rabbinic Jewry, right?
You don't say Kennedys. The Kennedys have.
Not the Kennedys. The Rockefellers. think of the Bushes. Bush. Right.
What's the last name?
What? Grudzinski. But that's the idea of like rabbinic families in Lithuania. That's the family that she came from, like the Rockefellers. Well, her dad was killed in the war. Her dad had a big yeshiva in Slobodka, a town in Lithuania. But she had all the students, and everyone was looking out for her. And my grandfather was he was like, well, people didn't know who he was. In the end, he was greater than everyone else. But in the end, and everyone's like, don't do it. And she faced tremendous pressure not to marry him. And so much pressure that after the war, we know that the state of Israel was only founded 3 years after the Holocaust was over. So during those 3 years, it was almost impossible to get into Israel, to get a visa into Israel. They managed to get a visa to slip her away from Sweden so she shouldn't get engaged to him. Okay? So now, people said to him, you better quickly get engaged before she leaves, seal the deal, before they convince her out of it. And he said that, and don't help her leave before it's done. So he writes in his diary that he adamantly refused. He says, if this is the right one for me, if indeed this is, then God will make it possible, available in a dignified manner. You don't have to do it stealthily. You don't have to do it covertly. In a basement quickly before she leaves and gets on the flight or the boat to Israel. And indeed, she went to Israel and she ended up winning over the detractors. And they brought him and they married and they lived for 70 years, 50 years, and she's still around. I got all impressed with her from reading the diary. Got to give her a call. But that was his philosophy. If it's the right one, you won't lose it. If you blink, but if you ignore it, well, if you're stupid, then.
No, it's not like if you don't make the right decisions.
If you don't squander, if you don't mess up, it'll be available for you. If you make the right decisions, you have your eyes wide open. Don't go blind. Don't go driving with the blindfolds on. Right? Do your due diligence, but ultimately you'll have the opportunity to make it right. That's what this piece of Talmud is saying. That's what the word Bashert means. Bashert doesn't mean, there's only a soulmate. We see evidence here that there's a first match and a second match. There may indeed be this idea of that one soul that's perfect for you, but that's not every case. And in most situations, or many situations, I would guess that the first match doesn't exist. And then the recourse is the second match, which is the most perfect or the closest one, but regardless, there are people that are compatible with us and people that are incompatible. We will have the opportunity to meet either the ideal one, the perfect, or close enough. And like Dahlia says, we better not squander. You have one shot, one opportunity. Okay. And that's the idea. I was thinking, this is just a controversial opinion alert. Just quickly, just a crazy idea. I don't know if it's true. We'll see. We'll crowdsource it. It doesn't say, in the prophecy, the announcement of the prophecy doesn't say, this guy to this girl, this fetus to this, what does it say instead? Anyone noticed? Did anybody notice that? Anybody knows what it says? Huh? It says the daughter. It's a strange, curious thing. There's a prophecy announcing who the perfect mate is for this person. And it doesn't say, it doesn't say this girl fetus to this guy fetus, or conversely. All it says is this guy to the daughter of this person. Why doesn't it say specifically which one of the daughters? Why does it name names? Like once it's a prophecy saying, whatever this declaration is, let it be more specific. What do you say, Ryan? Did you hear the question?
Could be multiple daughters.
Well, that's the problem. You don't know which one.
Like Rachel and Leon.
Interesting. But what I think, this is once again controversial opinion alert, maybe it's possible, what I was thinking, remember we're crowdsourcing, you see what you guys think. You could say, Rabbi Wolbe, I don't agree with that, and I think you're wrong. And that's fine. And I appreciate that. But this is just an opinion, I don't know if it's true. But it's possible that maybe this whole idea of a single soulmate, of two halves of one whole, of one soul split at birth, maybe that's not necessarily true. Maybe the souls are. It says the daughter of so and so. It means like someone with these characteristics. It's much more general. It's less specific because ideally there isn't just one person that you're ideally fit with. There's many, many, many people that you could potentially meet, and they're also ideal. And it says the daughter of so and so because it's much more of an inclusive terminology. We're not saying there's only one specific person that's perfectly ideal. There's many, many people. That's my opinion. Anyhow, but the takeaway idea of the evening is that we will encounter at some point in our lives, if we want, and if we don't squander, we'll have the opportunity to meet someone or the someone who is the perfect person for us, and the person that we want. If we want to settle down with someone, that's the right person for us to settle down with. We could squander it, we could be foolish, we could ignore it, but we'll have the opportunity. And I think it's like a calming effect. It was for me at least, but it's very much. It's overwhelming to think about how many people there are in the world, and if there's only one, that's for me, it's very overwhelming. Because how do you know? There's no you can't fit in a puzzle piece, which puzzle piece really fits in, or how do I know what my soul is, what the other person's soul is, and how do I know what we're not going to mess up, and who knows what's going to happen 5 years from now, and who knows what I'm going to discover about the person that'll make it, make it go downhill and make it sour, and maybe there'll be kids, and gosh, what a mess. Right?
To me, the other way around. Just chill out, and when the time comes, you'll know.
Yeah, but when the time comes, and I know that this may or may not have been true for me, but when the time comes, I was very, very nervous because when this decision, you make it's a serious decision. Okay? Anytime you're saying, I am willing to marry someone, it's a very, very serious decision. And it's binding, and it lasts forever, and it's on your record. It's in your record. And if you mess up, then the effects, the after effects are can be very harmful, very deleterious. And the thing that calmed me the most was this idea that I'm not making this decision myself. I'm not accepting the burden and responsibility of such an important decision. This is all the orchestration of God. God made it that we should meet. Everything seems right. Everything seems fine. The 5 C's are there. I did my due diligence. I did as much or as good of a job in scouting out as possible. From here on out, it's not in my hands. So that's the idea. And I hope everyone here who wants to settle down at one point doesn't miss their opportunity and cashes in.
If you have any questions, you come to Rabbi Wolby.
What
And
are the 5 C's anyway?
what are the 5 C's?
What is that?
Oh, that's
Compatibility.
color clarity.
It's your turn, Carrot.
Come on, everyone
Yeah. But the 5 C's are the 5 actually keys, but they're spelled with a C. They all start with the letter C. That determine the health or the longevity, success of a marriage. Because an exhaustive research of why marriages fail has determined that they fail for one of 5 reasons. All of them begin with the letter C. You want to hear them just for kicks? Yeah? Kicks for kicks? Compatibility. I might forget all of them, okay? If they're not compatible, then it may not work out. If they are compatible, that's obviously going to go a long way to make that. And that's this idea of the souls being compatible, whatever, right? Commitment. They're committed to each other, to the relationship, even though there may be bumps in the road, even though there may be an acclimation period, even though there may be difficulties, and they may have to make concessions, but they're committed. Commitment. Very good, Joe. Common goals. And what are that last 2? No, chemistry is part of accountability. Communication. And what's the last one?
You got the first word.
First four. And complete sexual and emotional fidelity. You have all those 5, you're guaranteed, with the wall be guaranteed of a successful marriage. And if you have 4, maybe, then most likely. If you have none, disaster.
Well, that's that's the other part of the soulmate thing is just finding the opportunity, but then sometimes people actually find it and then they go wrong after that.
Well, yeah, because only two of the 5 C's are actually before the marriage, or like selecting the right person, which is common goals and compatibility. Commitment is the attitude that people have in the marriage. If people are committed to the marriage, I had a friend, I said the story before, I'll say it again because it's the most harrowing story you'll ever hear in your life. I was on the golf course with a friend of mine who told me, quote, he wants to get married for the first time to get that one out of the way. To get that marriage out of the way so he can do what? It's a true story. Indeed, it's a true story. But that is an attitude that exists. Obviously, it's an extreme case, but that's an attitude that exists where people are not committed to a marriage. They say, I do till death do us part, but they don't really mean it.
Well, yeah,
And sometimes people are more willing to say till death do us part than to say, oh, a tiny little scribble will do us part. Right? It's easier to die a martyr than to live life. Right? Man, everyone dies, not everyone really lives. I'm quoting by William.
That's not true. It says in the Torah that Sarah lived.
That who?
It says in the Torah that Sarah lived. So there's one person that lived.
Oh, no, I said,
27 years later.
I was quoting from William Wallace. Everyone dies, but not everyone really lives. Nobody picked that up? Okay. Anyhow, any questions? Any more questions? Thank you all for coming. We'll see you all next week. Best of luck match, Argentina. So send us pictures. We meet a really nice Jewish girl, and we'll celebrate with you. And Ryan, good luck in residency.
Thank you.
Ryan's flying back to Arizona.
Yep.
And in about 2.5 years, be able to give us prescriptions for whatever we want. Could you prescribe it?
Yeah, no, I'm already a physician. Residency is once you graduate med school.
Oh, so you could give me prescriptions?
Oh, hopefully you don't need any, Rabbi.
I don't know, I'm just in case. And thank you all, and best of luck with all your relationships, especially long-term ones. Those are the determining relationships, make our lives better or worse.